Some breaking news that came in over the weekend is that Kevin Warsh is the new Fed chair, and now we want to go over what that means when it comes to the world of real estate. So, some things to keep in mind is that the headline CPI is up to 3.8%. And that is up from 2.4%. Mortgage rates have risen 53 basis points in the last 12 weeks. And the Iran war and trade shock has basically erased any wage growth that there is. But we are seeing the strongest spring market since 2022, and new listings and contracts are up nationwide for the most part. Mortgage rates just hit 6.51%, which is the highest it's been since August of 2025. And affordability has deteriorated, but it is still better than it was a year ago. So, what should we hope for when it comes to the new Fed chair? We should hope that he remains independent because, as we know, President Trump is pretty vocal about wanting rate drops. But when the rest of the economic factors don't show that a rate drop should happen, then we're hoping that as the Fed chair that he will at least keep rates steady. And as the article says here, the most durable path to housing affordability is not a rate cut when the data isn't calling for one. It is a Fed that earns the market's trust and delivers low, stable inflation that keeps long-term yields and mortgage rates well anchored. So, a question that you may have is, does Warsh's arrival mean rate cuts are coming, and would cuts even bring mortgage rates down? The answers to those in most basic terms is no and no. Warsh is only one of 12 votes, and the committee that he's on is generally in favor of rate hikes. He may set the agenda, but it's always supposed to be based on economic factors. And most likely, he wouldn't be able to get a majority vote for a rate cut. But as it says here, but even if he eventually moves the committee towards cuts, that does not automatically translate to lower mortgage rates. There's a real catch-22. If markets think the Fed is cutting for political reasons rather than data-driven ones, that gets priced into long-term yields as the potential for higher inflation. And mortgage rates could actually rise even as the Fed is cutting the rates. So another question that you may have is, how does the tension between what the data calls for and what the president wants play out? And what does that mean for Warsh's independence and credibility? Now, I'm going to read this to you because it's important for you to understand where Warsh has been standing in his past, right? It says, this question will define the early Warsh era, and the jury is still out. What confounded many Fed watchers is that Warsh was an inflation hawk when he served as governor from 2006 to 2011. Then he turned into a dove when interviewing for the job. The inconsistency itself is not the problem. Good central bankers are data-driven, not dogmatic. What raised eyebrows is the worry that he will keep pushing for cuts even when the data more clearly calls for the opposite, because that is what the president is preferring. A chair that is not data-dependent cannot be independent. Warsh will have ample opportunity to prove his independence, but it will be tested only when he is forced to make a politically unpopular call. Perhaps the silver lining in today's higher inflation readings and steady labor market is that the moment for Warsh to make a call at odds with the president's wishes may come within his first few meetings. So, what can Warsh and the Feds do for the housing market? What the Fed can actually do is limited. It cannot build homes. It cannot directly set mortgage rates. What the housing market needs from the Fed is what it has always needed: low, stable inflation and a labor market strong enough to support real wage growth. The path to housing affordability, given what the Fed can actually control, runs directly through taming inflation and inflation expectations. Higher inflation means higher mortgage rates today, and failing to get it under control means higher rates for borrowers in the coming years. Meanwhile, inflation is simultaneously eroding the real wage gains families depend on and eating into their ability to save for a down payment. It is hitting affordability from both ends at once. Getting inflation under control before it spirals is the whole ballgame right now. The best thing that Warsh can do is rely on the data and his Fed colleagues. If he can get inflation under control, then it says here that done right, that can help the housing market as well as the economic headwinds that we are facing right now. I just wanted to break down this news for you so you understood better where the housing affordability and housing markets stand in relation to the new Fed chair getting sworn in. Have a great day.